We're diving right into Amonkhet Standard, and thanks to all of you in the comments, I knew exactly where to take the format. Today we're looking at Aristocrats. We've worked with several different builds, but have finally managed to create one we think is baller as heck. The deck we're looking at today isn't $20, but it isn't $200 either. Throughout the video, we'll be using TCG player pricing to show you how much it'll cost to make, and if you like the deck, be sure to click the first link in the description for the entire list and the cheapest card prices around. Now without further ado, let's get our Aristocrat on. Most Aristocrat decks are based on mass sacrificing small creatures for powerful effects and then getting more small creatures to sacrifice them all over again. We believe that this version of the deck performs this as consistently as possible. We'll begin with our token generators. Servo Exhibition is one of the first auto-includes in the deck, full playset, 2 mana for 2 servos, that has sacrifice fodder written all over it, cheap cost, and we get exactly what we want. Similarly, we're also running Start to Finish. Now this may seem a little out of left field, but this Aftermath card is surprisingly powerful. It is more expensive than Servo Exhibition to get 2 1/1s, but you get them at instant speed, which is a huge boon. And they have Vigilance in case you actually get the chance to attack, which isn't often, but it can happen. What makes the split card truly insane though? Finish. As an additional cost to cast it, sacrifice a creature, destroy target creature. This is the quintessential Aristocrats card. It creates tokens and gives us a reason to sacrifice them, another staple for sure. The deck includes a pair of Sram's Expertise because 4 mana for 3 1/1s and a free cast on more than half of the spells in your deck is good. Who would have thunk it? Seriously though, Sram's Expertise is a bomb, but it's definitely too expensive for a full playset. 3 is kind of pushing it, but as we go through the rest of the deck, keep in mind that anything 3 mana or below is free with this card. It puts everything into perspective, let me tell ya. Great stuff. I know there's going to be groaning out there, but Gideon, ally of Zendikar, has to be in this deck in some fashion. It's the only way to make it as good as possible. Gideon might be the best card in Standard right now, and he poops out 2/2 tokens forever. Not only is he contributing to your mass token strategy, but he's resilient while he does it. Gideon's difficult to attack into, difficult to get rid of. He's everything you want in a Planeswalker and a piece of this deck. I know the cost sucks, but if you want the best Aristocrats deck in black-white, Gideon is in it, trust me. Possibly the best card in the entire deck, Hidden Stockpile, is our main token producer. Revolt is exceptionally powerful in a deck designed around permanents leaving the battlefield every turn. Once you get the Stockpile online, which basically takes no real effort, it never stops being online. It'll create 1/1s for you forever. It consistently fuels your sack outlets, which we'll go over in a minute, but more importantly, it consistently fuels your sack outlets for free. You don't have to pay anything for that revolt cost, just make sure something dies. Couldn't be easier. The last token producer we're running is Anointed Procession, and this card is in the deck to help deal with the long game. Obviously, this is a card you're going to take out against aggro decks, but against anything that doesn't try to win by turn 4 or 5, Anointed Procession becomes totally busted. It doubles up everything you want to do. Your stockpiles become crazy, your exhibitions double up, your Sram's Expertise. See what I mean? The game gets out of control really fast. So Anointed Procession is worth keeping in the deck in a limited number. But don't be afraid to remove it if things get aggressive after game 1. If they don't, this is a win condition right here. So now that you've seen all the ways we're going to create the tokens, let's look at the fun ways we're going to get rid of them. We've already covered Start to Finish and Hidden Stockpile as sacrifice outlets, but Bone Splinters is another fun and exciting card that's all about what we're trying to do here. 1 mana, you sacrifice a 1/1 you don't care about, boom, their biggest creature is dead. Really difficult to argue against that. Bone Splinters was made for this type of strategy. Trading this card and a 1/1 for a legitimate threat on board is exactly what you want to be doing. It's super good. Syndicate Trafficker, another staple, is easily one of the better cards in the deck. While all of your tokens aren't servos, most of them are. Everything you create from the Stockpile, Exhibition, and Expertise, artifacts. The Trafficker's ability is cheap, impactful on the board, and gets you your Revolt and Sack triggers, which is all we're really looking to do. Not only does the Trafficker cheaply enable your entire deck, it also swings in for a lot. You get a counter every time, and it becomes indestructible for a turn. Don't get me wrong, attacking in with the Trafficker isn't your primary win condition, but I was baffled at how many games it stole simply from being gigantic. Indestructible is real, especially once it gets out of Grasp of Darkness range. My oh my. Now this deck wouldn't be an Aristocrats deck without the Queen of Aristocrats herself, Buntu the Glorified. I can't say enough about this card. I think it brought the entire deck together. Not only do you get to sacrifice any other creature so there's no artifact restriction, but by sacrificing a single token each turn, you get to attack or block with a 4/6 that has Indestructible and Menace that cost you 3 mana to play. How is that not insane? I'm positive that whoever made this card had this exact deck in mind because Buntu literally couldn't fit better anywhere else. I can't talk this card up enough. If you're building this deck, please play her. She's beyond ridiculous, a super consistent sacrifice engine that lets you fix the top of your deck and drain your opponent, and she's a beat stick. There's nothing more to say. Buntu is just absurd. The last best way we have to sacrifice our stuff, Herald of Anguish. This demon is a masterpiece. I mean, it isn't technically a masterpiece, but you understand where I'm coming from. Herald of Anguish is totally bonkers. Even though he only sacrifices servos, it doesn't matter. There are a plethora of creatures that fall easy prey to Herald of Anguish. He's relatively easy to cast in this deck. He's a 5/5, so a ton of removal dodges him. He flies, so he's difficult to block. He forces discard, which is card advantage most of the time. And that ability triggers your sacrifice engine and is a removal spell all in one. Herald of Anguish is literally everything, all the time ever. Great card. So we've seen how we're going to create tokens and how we're going to sacrifice them. Now it's time to look at the payoffs. How we're going to win the game by killing all of our own stuff. We'll begin with the best of the best Zulaport Cutthroat. At the helm of basically every Aristocrats deck since he was printed, the Cutthroat is the primary win condition. Win through attrition. You keep gaining life, they keep losing life, keep creating tokens, keep killing them. This is how you end up winning most of your games. Maybe he won't take all of their life, but it's reasonable to expect the Cutthroat to steal 10 to 15 life throughout the game. Not even joking, 1 life at a time adds up fast. Bone Picker is a great new addition to this deck and is super difficult to deal with. Let me be real with you. You will never have to cast this for 4 mana. Ever. You just won't. When you look at this card, it is a 3/2 with Flying and Death Touch for a single black mana. That's just what it is. That 3 doesn't exist. Would you play a 1 mana 3/2 with Flying and Death Touch? Yeah, you would play that. So play it. You'll never have to pay 4 for this. But in that weird situation where the planets realign and you somehow do, you're probably dead or close to it. Bone Picker provides a fast clock, is absurdly cheap, and presents your opponent with yet another avenue of defeat they're going to have to deal with. The last card in the deck to bring it all home is Fatal Push. You had to know this was coming, easy auto-include. Revolt is going to be triggered constantly, so this is 1 black mana to destroy a 4 mana cost creature pretty much all the time, and even if it isn't, it still removes a lot of what you don't want to deal with, especially early game. Fatal Push is one of the best removal spells in the format, and with Revolt always on, there's no reason not to run it. That leaves us with 24 lands. We're running Concealed Courtyard, Shambling Vent, and Evolving Wilds. The Courtyard and Vent are in the deck because they're the best black-white dual lands we have to work with right now. Easy choices there. Evolving Wilds makes the cut because of its interaction with Revolt. It triggers the ability in case you don't have any token shenanigans going on yet, which means that it gets hidden stockpiles started, which is reason enough to play it, and it mana fixes you, so why not? Also, we're running a pair of Westvale Abbey. While the Abbey can be another win condition, most of the time you're going to use it for more sacrifice fodder in case your token count gets low. If you do end up being able to flip it, you can take advantage against a lot of decks right now that don't exile all that well. Great card for this deck. Add that to 8 swamps and 7 plains and you have the 24 land mana base. Let's take a look at sideboard options and then alternative choices in case the deck is too expensive or you want something a little bit different. Kalitas is one of the best sideboard options for this deck. He's great against aggressive strategies, he helps keep your life total high, and when you inevitably kill your opponent's creatures, he gets zombies and can fuel himself. If you have him or can afford him, great include. I'd also consider Anguished Unmaking. Great against planeswalkers, gods, enchantments, basically anything you don't like that may show up. We didn't include it in the main board because we thought creature destruction was more important game 1, but if you end up against something non-creature related that you hate, Anguished Unmaking is where it's at. Vehicles is going to be one of your most common matchups, so be sure to sideboard a couple Grasp of Darkness and Fragmentize. Both of those are pretty sweet against vehicle strategies. Lastly, counter decks are still around, and you will be up against creature-based strategies that try to go bigger than you. Which won't be hard, because most of your creatures are 1/1s. So Dusk to Dawn ends up being kind of broken against them. They won't see it coming, and all of your sacrifice fodder survives. That's good stuff. Now, if you don't have the funds to make this deck work in its current form, you can downgrade your land base, which significantly lowers the cost. Thankfully, Evolving Wilds is cheap, but turning your other non-basics into basics isn't the worst thing ever. Saves a decent chunk of money. The elephant in the room is definitely Gideon, though. The problem is that there aren't any replacements for him that will do the exact same job, but if you absolutely have to replace him with something, you should up start to finish to 4 copies and Sram's Expertise to 3. Cheap cards still give you your tokens. That's the best you're going to get, I think. Lastly, if you don't have Fatal Push, there's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned Grasp of Darkness party. I love that card, I can't talk it up enough. It doesn't have the same mana efficiency that the Push has, but it kills most of the same stuff, mainly Mardu Vehicles targets, which is always good. So yeah, that's a decent budget replacement there. So what do you think of Black-White Aristocrats? Is this a deck that you'd consider running? Have you already made something like this? I gotta tell you, it's pretty sweet once you get it going. You just sacrifice things over and over again while poking your opponent into oblivion. It's fantastic. It's like bleeding them dry. Just a wonderful time all around. If you enjoy the deck and want to see the list or purchase any of it on the cheap, you can click the first link in the description. Also, if you have any other deck ideas that you'd like us to work on, please leave them below and we'll talk about it. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.